Oh, were we live? I didn't see it live here, so you know. Ujjayi, and welcome to the Gator Gates podcast. We're back with you guys with another episode. We are excited to get back with you guys. You know, it's I know for some of you, I know that you probably haven't digested the it technically could have been a class. It was a class. It was a master class. But I know some of you guys haven't digested the show from last week. So I know some of you guys still might be reeling or kind of hiding, but that's okay because we're back with you guys. We're like Puffy. You know, I thought I told you that we won't stop. I thought I told you that we won't stop. But anyway.
It's the wrong time to be quoting Puffy.
I know, right? Because Puffy right now is... right now you don't want to be Puffy and talking about you don't stop. But that's okay. Before we get started, I'd like to really take the time to acknowledge all the forces in the non-material, all the ancestors that are standing behind this great work, particularly Nabnabla Musamor Dinabig, and all the other ancestors that are... Oh, are you live from my page? Okay, yeah, so switch out and go to Kepta's page. That's okay. That's fine. I have like 10 followers, so no one's probably watching on the live stream on Instagram. You switch from there. So I would like to acknowledge all the forces in the non-material, all the ancestors that are standing behind this great work, all the forces of nature that are standing behind this great work, all the deities, all the genies, all of the forces that are supporting this great work and standing behind this great work, and acknowledge all of the temples that are standing behind us, and the great spirit that's responsible for opening up the doors to these temples and to this work for the rest of the world during this current age, and that is Nebnabla Musamor Dinabig. So now that we've acknowledged everything that's standing behind us and everything that's standing behind you guys to bring us all together and to have us on this line together, my name is Tutip Samahekun Amir. I am your host, and I'm here with...
Kajizri Ben Saikapta, your co-host.
And Matthew Ruta, your guest for today.
That's a very special guest.
Very special guest. We could not have followed up our special guest from last week by letting you guys down, because we have the most devoted and dedicated Gate of Gate fan here with us.
What do you call them? The GOGers?
I don't know. How'd you put it?
GOGers.
GOGers.
Because it sounds like a G-O-G, like a O-G-G.
I'll take it.
Okay.
Like a gangster, original gangster.
Yes.
And also shout out to Zawaz's mom for the honey wine. This is phenomenal. But yeah, you know, Matthew is joining us all the way from...
Toronto, Canada.
So Matthew made his way out here just to join us on the show and just to, to check things out and to really kind of see how, how we do things and how we roll here in New Jersey. So we're really honored to have Matthew here. And, it's really interesting because now we don't know who's going to hold down the comments in the chat with Matthew being here, because we don't know how it's going to unfold or how it's going to go.
We still got Chem Warrior, DeMarcus.
That's true. We got DeMarcus. We got, Warrior Zulbukande. Shout out to you guys. You know, the people that are always showing us love and making sure to tune in. But, so, Matthew, you are about 7 weeks into your initiation, right?
Yes.
And you are currently enrolled in initiation at the Toronto Temple.
Yes.
And the interesting thing is that, or the most wonderful thing, is that you still have, because a lot of people tend to adopt kind of like like human beings kind of have this drawback of sorts where they can become or adopt like a religious mindset. And they kind of stop asking vital questions. And they stop asking real questions, most importantly. And the refreshing thing about you is that you ask real, practical questions that apply to life, that have to do with, society, that have to do with real life, that have to do with like, how do I actually do this? How do I actually make this work? How do I actually make this fit? And so I just met you today in person. But the interesting thing that I found that you were kind of sharing is that you come from a Polish background.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, yeah, that is true.
But in particular, what I was kind of thinking about was people, particularly when they're coming from places that are still connected to culture, they tend to have still a bit of a more grounded approach and a more of a realistic approach to doing things. And then finding out that, your parents are from Poland and they immigrated here about 30, 35 years ago.
Yeah.
And just thinking to myself, have you noticed or do you have any differences that you have maybe come to terms with when comparing your upbringing in a immigrant household with parents coming from Poland versus maybe just some random guy that's from Toronto, just grew up in Toronto, lived in Toronto, and his family has been in Canada for generations, and maybe they don't know where they're coming from and they just consider themselves like white Canadian?
Yeah, that's a good question. There is a difference because my parents, when they immigrated with all that they had, and they brought their culture with them, and their traditions and their values, and they held on to that. And they were fortunate enough to also have a community that could support that and facilitate those cultural traditions and those values as well, through the Catholic Church, because Polish people are extremely Catholic. So they're very intertwined. And if, since that space was provided in Toronto or in various areas of the world, then like there's a backbone for it to continue that. You'll have people that'll start up these Polish schools to maintain and teach children of the next generations how to speak Polish, how to write, history. Whereas someone who's been living in Canada might not have had that.
And you speak Polish, right?
Yes.
Are you fluent?
I
Like if we got to go on a mission to Poland,
I could.
I
could.
Are you holding it down, or are we gonna have to use like Google Translate?
No, I'm holding it down. I don't have to.
That's what I'm talking about. So then you still have it to some extent.
Yeah.
So then, what's interesting is you said that you can find pockets of community within America in terms of the Polish culture, people teaching you how to speak Polish. Now, my parents are immigrants as well, and my parents came from Sudan. And what I found growing up here in America is that America in particular has a culture of no culture. So America in particular having a culture of no culture, it's frowned upon to maintain your culture. It's frowned upon to be multilingual. It's frowned upon to be bilingual. Did you find that in Canada? What were your experiences like growing up in Canada, being a Polish Canadian versus maybe some Canadians?
So it's not necessarily frowned upon. Canada and like the Canadian government tries to do a really good job of making everyone from every culture and every background feel welcome and that they can practice their traditions and their values here. It's only when you start having like generations that are born here and raised here kind of indoctrinated into the American Western English modern worldview. And so like my older sister, for example, like when she started JK being junior kindergarten, I don't know if that's a thing here in America. But
No, what's junior kindergarten?
junior kindergarten is like preschool. It's preschool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I forget.
Call it that.
Pardon?
We have that. We just don't call
Oh,
it that.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have kindergarten, but
There's pre-K.
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 Yeah.
But I've never heard it called junior kindergarten.
Right.
Canadians have a way of making things sound so much like nicer or softer. Like here in America, just like preschool.
Yeah.
But like junior kindergarten sounds so much more age appropriate for children.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, keep going.
No, it's okay. So, like, an example would be like if you, because there are immigrants that bring their children into Canada when they immigrate, and they only know their language, right? So if you go to school, I think you even shared on a podcast that like you or someone shared on
Mhm.
a podcast that like they didn't speak English when they first started school or something like that. I could be wrong.
Unfortunately, I barely speak English, and it's the
Okay.
only language I
Okay.
can speak.
Then never mind.
So I don't know who it was.
Okay.
He's probably talking about me when they were making fun of me saying the word three, because I say tree.
Oh,
I don't say.
Okay.
I've never
Three.
heard you stutter before.
It-
And then you just were
there's
like,
certain words.
It's like me.
The thing is, certain words you're gonna hear me stutter because Jamaicans don't pronounce certain letters with certain words, like
Oh.
tree,
Three.
Yeah.
Three, man.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
No,
Matthew.
and like
I don't know how just
you'll
went
have.
into-
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. But you'll have kids that will.
He's so polite.
will
That's what I'm saying. He's so Canadian. Like,
yeah, the stereotype. It comes in.
it's alive and well
Yes.
in the flesh.
Yep. Yes. And you'll have kids that'll go to school without knowing how to speak English, and obviously, the rest of the kids will center out the people that don't fit, the one that doesn't fit. And be like, why don't you speak English? Like, what's wrong with you? Like,
Oh, they do that.
yeah, but like out of ignorance and like they don't know any better. But like it can be seen as like a kind of like a put down, and then even you'd be surprised. Actually, now I take back what I said because I'm remembering that there's racism in Canada. There's racism in
It
Canada.
just dawned on you now.
Yeah. Like because we have a large population of immigrants from India right now, and like
Shout out to Terry. Shout out to Jasmine.
yeah, and the European population that kind of immigrated before, like they don't accept, right? They don't understand that there's another there's another group of people that has their culture, and it's different from theirs, and they just they're not open to it, and they have this feared mentality of like, oh, they're taking all our jobs, or they're ruining this country, or all this stuff, and it's pretty bad. So now I take that back. I stand corrected.
So with that being said, I want to ask a question because maybe it's a little ignorance on my part, but you mentioned you're from Poland, right?
Yeah.
But you're Catholic.
Yeah.
So what's really the difference between a Catholic from Poland and a Catholic from England or a Catholic from Sweden? Because for us, they're all white people who are Catholics.
Yeah.
So is there a distinction between you guys? Is there
Thank
is
you,
like
Carlos O'Hara.
See, this is where I'm limited in my knowledge of different Catholic people in different Catholic communities in different countries. But from my understanding, as being raised in the Polish Catholic community, it's they hold on to that, and they really cherish that. The Polish community really cherishes and really is very strong in their views that Catholicism is the best, and it's this or nothing, and anything if you go against this, then you're going to hell, and they're very strict, and because
The thing that I find most interesting is even because when people really get into the nitty-gritty of the origins of Catholicism and really the origins of Christianity, then you really find Kemetic spirituality at the root. Because what a lot of people don't know historically is that Kemetic spirituality is at the root of religions, because even when you talk about the Abrahamic religions, you're even using Medu, which is from Kemet and which is a part of the Kemetic civilization, to even speak about these religions. Because you're using Medu because even Eb would be the heart, and then Ra, obviously, and then Him. And then you're saying the heart of Ra is within me. And then whereas when you switch it to Islam, and then you start saying, I'm sorry, when it's in Christianity, it's Eb. So that would be the purity. So that would be, no, I'm sorry, Ab. Ab is when you switch it. So in Islam, it would be Ibrahim. So it would be the heart of Ra is within me. And then when you switch it to Christianity, it would be the purity of Ra is within me. Ab, meaning purity. Ra, obviously, and then Him. And so when you really get down to the nitty gritty, even when you look at the Irish, like the Irish are diehard Catholics. And when you look at certain regions in Europe, you can see the roots of people that had a culture that, particularly when you get to Eastern Europe, and then some of the regions where you can still see the remnants of the, pagan culture and the polytheism, and then you still see it, and then you can sort of see in certain areas where that's been taken away from them or that was robbed, and then you see this attachment, a very strong attachment, a very strong identity tied to Christianity. So some of the most religious people that hold or cling to religion the most, a lot of times are people that had those practices at a certain point and it was taken from them.
So it's interesting that you say that because the Polish community, Polish culture still kind of holds on to those pagan practices. Some pagan practices.
Can you talk about that? What those look like and what they are?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the authority on it, so I'll try to do it justice. But an example would
so
be
polite.
Well, I want to do my due diligence as a representative. But like an example would be like for females that don't have partners, for like the day of St. John, they would make a wreath out of flowers and then throw it into a river or a body of water with a candle, and in order to kind of like get a man. Right. That's a really.
Are the men just like there watching and they're like, gotcha?
No.
Like they like watch the lady throw it in and then they're like, let me go talk to her.
No. The men aren't there, but it's more in like the spiritual sense of like, if I do this, then like a man will come into my life and I will meet someone.
And so they just throw like a wreath, like basically like a circular thing made of like flowers.
Yeah, out of flowers.
So it's a fertility thing.
Yeah.
Trying to invite that into their lives. Okay.
Yeah. That's an example. I mean, like I don't want to butcher other ones, but like that's an example of like those small things that are still there. Or even like for Easter, you bless your eggs. I think like other Eastern European, like you bless your eggs, but like that's not, blessing your eggs is not a Catholic tradition. From my understanding, at least, like that comes from the previous culture, or like, bringing that stuff. I'm trying to think of other ones, but like, I don't want to like say it and then be wrong.
No, it's okay. I don't think we have any Polish fact checkers on here. They're gonna come after you, Matt.
No.
So my question is this: before getting exposed to spirituality and initiation, in looking at the Polish community and looking at what you perceive to be Polish culture, did you ever think that this probably isn't your culture? Like maybe there's something wrong here? Like at some point in time, like something was lost?
Like my Polish culture, that my Polish culture is...
Yeah, because
like
obviously it's not Catholicism, right?
Yeah. But like before Catholicism came in, like we have our history. We know that we were pagan, and like we still know that. We teach that, like that's taught in the Polish history schools. And we know like the king that brought Christianity to like the tribes, and then like there's years of conflict with the tribes of like, you know, going back and forth of, you know, going back to their pagan ways or going not. So like there are years of that. But to answer your question, did I know that like that culture, or not that culture, but Catholic culture wasn't for me? Yeah, it started to not make sense at some point. Like many of us that were indoctrinated early into the culture. Yeah. Did you need me to follow up on that, or no?
Well, I guess what I was trying to say is, or ask you is, what was the thing that made you realize it wasn't for you? Like, what made you really sit down and look at this thing and be like, okay, this is not right, this is off? Because it's interesting that you mentioned that you guys are taught the history of being pagan, but for a lot of us in the African American or black communities, most people aren't necessarily taught that they were the diaspora or whatever. Yeah, we're not necessarily taught that we were pagan or we worshiped this or we had this god or none of that. But it seems that in most European families and countries, they are taught those things. They even know the names of a lot of these gods.
Yeah.
But for some reason, they still choose to be Christian or Catholic. So like, what is the thing that made you wake up one day and say, this is not correct?
It was a combination of things that happened over the years. One of which was that finding out that there was parts of the scriptures, right, that like are omitted from the Bible, right? That
I mean, omitted.
Omitted,
right?
yeah, omitted from the Bible. Thank you. And like it was like that was step one, strike one of like, if people are controlling what is being shared and what is being passed down and what is right, I was like, who are these people to do that, right? And then like I just went on a deep dive of like understanding or just starting to be skeptical of like the history of Christ or of the existence of Jesus. Like, how do you prove, like being really critical and like being rational, using logic of like, how do you prove this, right? And like, and then when it comes to like the book of Revelation, where it's like very out there, where you're hearing about like animals with wings and like many heads, and I'm like, where did that come from? And just questioning it. It wasn't necessarily my Polish heritage and like being taught the pagan rituals that kind of question. That was, if anything, that led me to that led me to the Art Center. But moving away from Catholic religion, it was just more in the sense of like the history wasn't adding up and the values weren't adding up as well. You had people saying one thing and then doing another, and that's a big turnoff. And it's kind of like, well, I'm not going to try to beat the system because it's not going to work.
There's a lot of people out there trying to do that, though. I mean, for you to say that, I think exhibits, like for you to say you're not going to try and beat the system, I think also comes from an intelligence or a maturity to understand that it's very difficult to defeat something that doesn't technically have like a face. And then it's just kind of like, when you look at to use a reference that people may understand, like when you look at the movie The Matrix, like the millions of the sea of faces that you see that they pass every day that they don't think about, only when they look at someone that's not abiding by that programming that the Matrix is implanting in them, then they kind of glitch out and then become a face of the system and then kind of start operating due to that programming. So I mean, for you to say that, I think is interesting, because I think a lot of people get caught up in it. It's very difficult to not make any one of us that find ourselves here revolutionaries. But I think a lot of people get caught up in the path and the journey of revolution, where they want revolution to be, how do I fight the system from within the system? So it's very interesting for you to even kind of say that, because I think that's a starting point or a foundational piece that a lot of people miss in true revolutionary or true revolution.
Yeah, like even the concept that was shared on the show of like trying to get a seat at the table when the table doesn't even serve you. So that like that made sense in that, because in my time before finding the Earth Center, I was you'd call me a woke progressive, right? You know, equal rights for everyone, and we support and we love everyone, all this stuff. And like that was a part of the fact of like, you know, the Catholicism like would try to preach that, is not doing it. And I was like, well then, cut.
It's interesting because I saw the other day that that the Pope, I think it's Francis, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
current Pope.
Yeah.
That he was striking back at some of his opposition within the Catholic Church. You saw that?
Yeah.
And how he was removing the subsidized housing for some of his vocal opponents who are kind of questioning the inclusivity, the more of the liberal kind of adoption of political beliefs in terms of the way of approaching
You mean the LGBT stuff?
everything, whatever Pope Francis is doing, that he basically is striking back at those people within the Catholic Church by he removed that person's subsidized housing. So he's like, that apartment that the Vatican pays for, like you can't live there anymore. And that's how he was striking back at his like enemies within the Vatican. But the interesting thing, and it made me think, is because the other day I was watching a show called Gen V. And it's a show that's like a spin-off of the show The Boys that comes on. Okay. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
I've seen The Boys.
But it takes place on a college campus. And so I had it on the other day, just while I was working. I had it on in the background. And the interesting thing is how the kids were talking about how having a certain political belief or an acceptance of a certain political belief made them a good person. And how if you didn't have a kind of liberal acceptance, or you weren't accepting of a liberal perspective in terms of like, okay, you know, this person has this sexual orientation, or this person has this political belief, or this person has this and this person has that, then you're essentially written off as being a bad person. And it's
just for not accepting what somebody believes.
Just for not accepting somebody else in their, you know, their being or their manner and the way that they do things and the way that they function. And then it makes me kind of doubling back to what you were saying about, you know, you were more of like a woke or like accepting person.
Yeah.
Do you guys, what are your guys' thoughts on the fact that that's the way things are kind of positioned, and that's the way things are kind of, you know, put, is that if you're not accepting of a particular, you know, belief, or you're not accepting of a particular agenda, then it makes you a bad person.
Yeah.
It's interesting because when you really think about colonialism, at its very root, at its very core, colonialism is really an institution of chaos, but it's an institution of organized chaos. And that institution functions on the necessity or the need to wipe out other people's ways of life. But then in wiping out other people's ways of life, then now you have to now give them yours. And you can kind of see how that same kind of mentality is still being played out. But it's being played out in a very interesting way, because now the kind of like agenda is everything is freedom, everything is liberal, everything is supposed to be all inclusive. But even that idea in itself is an ideology. Even that idea in itself is really the same thing as colonialism. It's people coming in and then trying to impose their way of thinking on everyone else. And now if you don't think the same way they think, you're now looked at as the bad guy, and then you're now, what's the word, ostracized for your values, your beliefs, or your principles. So now people don't even have the room to even like hold on to their values or hold on to what they've been raised on anymore, because now this new wave of colonialism is coming to kind of like dictate how people should think and how people should be. And really what it's doing is leading us to a path where if you don't have like values or you don't have principles to stand on, then everything is just whatever. Everyone can just be whatever, do whatever. Then it's obvious that it's only going to lead to some form of destruction, because everything has like an order. Everything has like a set rule. Like everything has like a set value. But now when it's just this world or this realm of everything can just be, like it's a free-for-all, just because this person thinks they're a man and they're not, this person thinks they're a donkey or a horse, and I have to accept that. Now what? Then it's gonna be what? Be pedophilia is okay. It's gonna be rape is okay. Homosexuality is already okay. Bestiality is okay. Then you just see the degeneration of human civilization and society. So again, I think it goes right back to like that aspect of no culture. And again, it's really a result of colonialism, because colonialism came to destroy culture. And now we're seeing it destroying culture in real time. There's already no more culture. And it's just like, okay, what do we destroy next? What do we attack next? What's next? Let's just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. And if you're not with it, then you're against it. So we're going to be against you.
That's really interesting. And now I have a question. I'm gonna pose a question as if I was in the chat right now, like my
That's what you're here for.
like my brothers Demarcus and Chem Warrior.
Yeah.
Zo
Bukande.
Switched his name back.
Yeah, changed it,
Nice.
switching it up.
We like it. The question being, Kafra. Sorry.
Yeah, don't be shy.
Yeah, no. I got a message. That is that way of thinking gonna level the playing field for, like, you know what I mean, level the playing field of if everything is accepted and everything is leveled, right? Leveled in the sense of, and this is coming from like colonial mindset as well, programming, to give way to, because like, you know, back then even you had a lot of different religions, different cultures that are all kind of screaming in a crowd, and like there's a lot of noise, and like we do this and we do this, and now it's like, well, if Western colonialism kind of like now has this agenda of allowing everything to be accepted, or to like, you know, if you hate or whatnot, it kind of, do you see, like, I don't know if that question makes sense, but
Kind of. I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, I'm gonna let me let you rephrase it.
Okay.
Or maybe say it a different way.
yeah, when you ostracize everything, right, and you then have the like, you know, everyone is kind of on the same page, of all accepting and all doing and whatnot, but then you have people that are, well, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I mean, you have that everyone's on the same page, and you know, all the other religions and all the other cultures that kind of went against that colonial mindset that like promoted, like, not hate, but like, you know, we're doing things that weren't around colonialism. Then you'll have kind of like two people left in the ring, right? You'll have the colonial mindset and then whoever's left, right? And then either they could battle it out, or they can be like, okay, now that when everyone's on the same playing field and there's less noise and people can see that there are these two cultures left, right? Colonial and whatever else is left, indigenous, and then be like, okay, well, now you can see that it's like the indigenous culture. Is it now like, can that, do we believe that can happen, where people will then start to see that?
Well, I think that the world is in a wildly different place right now, because even looking at like what the Israel and Gaza situation kind of highlighted, it's that there's a less of a tolerance for BS. And I think that the powers that be have been very comfortable in their BS positions and being able to pass off whatever they want you to think and their narratives and their ways of doing things off as the only way to think. Now you have people that are challenging that status quo in a way that makes things very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And makes things very kind of complicated.
Yeah.
Because then people are forced to really think about what's being put in front of them and whether it makes sense, and see different sides of arguments and see different sides of narratives.
Yeah.
Where it's becoming more and more difficult for people to just, digest the official narrative.
Yeah.
And I think that what's happening now is people are starting to kind of sniff out the bullshit that the system puts in front of you, and that if you don't consume this and you don't agree with this, then you're not a good person.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they play on that sense of morality on people, where they will say to you, if you don't accept this, you're not a good person. If you don't do this, you're not a good person. So then people feel pressured or feel an inclination to function a certain kind of way, or adopt certain lifestyles, or adopt certain, ways of doing things. Whereas that in the past, it was a bit more outright and forthcoming, where it was, if you don't adopt this lifestyle, I'm going to chop your head off. If you don't adopt this lifestyle, I'm going to burn you at the stake. But then now it's, if you don't adopt this lifestyle, then you're not a good person. If you don't adopt this lifestyle, then you're ostracized by the group.
Yeah.
So that kind of psychological, play is still there, but you have to have a very strong foundation, a very strong mind, and you have to come from a very cultured place to understand the difference between them playing what it means to be good versus versus what it means to be right. And they play that on you in a way that becomes very paradoxical, because I think now you have people saying it's not right to kill anyone. And then Israel is saying, well, those are the bad guys and we're the good guys. And then everyone's saying, well, okay, yeah. Then there's still the idiots that are out there that are like, yeah, of course, yeah. Then they have a right because they're the good guys. And then you have people that are out there that are like, no, it doesn't make sense because it's not right.
Yeah.
What's happening is not right.
Yeah.
Irrespective of who's doing it, it's not right. And I think that's the interesting juncture we find ourselves in globally as a species, as people on the planet, is that people are now having to reconcile the fact that maybe we were all sold the bill of goods, and that now some of us are thinking maybe I want a refund. Maybe the American dream and its the different tentacles that are kind of extending from that monster, which is the American dream, which is Western culture. People are like, I think I'm good, and I don't want it.
I think the beautiful thing about the times that we're in now, it's a beautiful and also a very dangerous thing, is the fact that, just to piggyback off of what you've been saying, the fact that people are now looking at the world and can see that something is off and something is wrong. Now people are starting to judge or second guess what we've been taught and all the things we've grown to learn. And now it's going to come to a junction or a point in which people are going to look for something else. And this is where the beauty of it comes into play, because the destructive part about it, or the nasty part about it, is we've all been educated by colonialism. You can't really get around that. So our perception of what might be good versus what might be bad is still a lot of the times rooted in colonialism.
And it's set by those people that are presenting things to you.
Exactly. But the beautiful part about it is now people are starting to question that. So now it becomes a matter of, okay, where am I going to go look for a new foundation? And I think that's where this becomes really beautiful, because now it's going to be the time for indigenous society and our ancestral ways of doing things to kind of come back. And I think that's what a lot of people are really searching for. I see a lot of people on the internet nowadays, they're trying to do sustainable living, permaculture,
exit the system.
Yeah, and
everything.
what do they call it?
Self-sustainability.
Self-sustainability. The housing, the natural. People are building houses out of mud and clay and all this.
They're trying to envelop themselves back into nature.
Right, and it's just like when you really look at it, you're just trying to do what our ancestors did.
Yeah.
They're just trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah,
Right,
if it was already built, like, you know what? Yeah.
Yeah. So it only makes sense to go back to the people who've always been doing it and are still continuing to do it. And I think that's where the world is going to go. It might not get there tomorrow or next year or 10 years, but that's where it's going, because where we've been and where we are right now, it obviously has not been working, and people are starting to question it.
So this is where I have another question,
Mhm.
because we brought up Israel and Palestine, or, you know, and people are saying, you know, maybe I want a refund, maybe I don't like this. But do we think that people will realize the hypocrisy that they are coming from a civilization that did the same thing, and like when you're a part of it, you're supporting it, kind of, in a way, or is that not the case, right?
Well, I think the system has a way of making people feel blameless and responsibility-less. So they take away your ability to take responsibility for it by saying that it's not you doing it technically.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have people that are part of the machine on opposite sides,
Mm-hmm.
and then they say, well, I don't support what's happening, and then they feel like they don't have blood on their hands. But then the blood on your hands is the car.
Mm-hmm.
The blood on the hands is the grocery store. The blood on the hands is the
Cell
gas.
phone.
Yeah, the cell phone, the gas, all of it.
It's everything.
Yeah.
Everything
Mhm.
that you use, everything that you consume. It's clothes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the items, everything, you name it. That's the blood on your hands, because that's what makes this system continue to thrive and continue to be what it is. So then ultimately it comes down to then, how do you truly exit and not have blood on your hands? And I think that that's a conversation a lot of people are not ready for. I think that's a conversation that a lot of people don't want to ultimately have, because even like what you were describing is still
Mm-hmm.
having blood on your hands, but then now instead of burying your head in the sand and acting like you don't have blood in your hands,
Mhm.
now you're just trying to maybe dress up the fact that you have blood on your hands,
Mm-hmm.
because that way of living is still Western living technically,
Mm-hmm.
but now you're trying to act like you're doing something different, but you're still doing it within the confines and within and having to exist within that said machination that you
Mhm.
have to partake in, that will force you to have blood on your hands. So then the question becomes, then how do you position yourself in a way to ensure that you don't have blood on your hands, and that you're getting closer and closer and closer to something that doesn't force you to have blood on your hands? And I think that that's where a lot of people kind of get caught up. And maybe that's where a lot of people don't understand what we are and what we do in Kepta. Because if you're just looking at us as a nonprofit, and then there's so much that's going to go over your head.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're just looking at us as, like whatever you want to look at us as,
Mm-hmm.
based on whatever things we had to do in order to exist within a society that has blood on its hands, and then whatever we had to do in order to position ourselves in that, in order to be able to reach those that are still being led to slaughter
Mm-hmm.
by the powers that be, then you get lost, and then you miss it, and then you're not able to maybe recognize it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. That's exactly like the kind of conversation that would like what happened on Gate of Gates, that, you know, really said, you know, maybe I'm not alone in this, and that I'm not the only one that thinks this way, and that like people are actually doing something. People are actually trying here, and I'm like, I want to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to see, because like, you know, you can't do it alone, right? There's that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Mm.
And I'm like, I was tired of going alone personally, and I know other people are, but some people they like doing that, and or they're not awake yet and they don't understand like the trade-off, right, of saying one thing and then still supporting, saying one thing, saying like free Palestine or free this and save the planet and all this, but that still live in Western society that upholds that and like going against those values. So it was like, yeah, that really pushed, and that's why I'm here. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is that I think that a lot of people, I don't think that is a like special notion. Like, and that's where we kind of get caught up, is we start to think like even what you're expressing and being like, I'm not alone. I think people are much more closer to that perspective than you may realize, because I think that people are more and more like waking up. I think COVID was a real wake-up call for a lot of people.
Yeah. That did it.
Like, that really forced people to realize, like, wait a second, like what am I doing? Like what is this? Like, for real, like what is this? And then they started questioning, what does it mean? Like, what am I working toward? What am I working for? Like, what's really my goal? And what am I getting out of this? Like, and that kind of really forced people to kind of think. Because one so-called little virus comes along, and the world, the modern world as we know it, comes to a screeching halt.
Yep.
And then it makes you think, like, so they purport themselves or present themselves in a way where they're like, we have complete control of everything. We can even tell you what's happening 2.5 million miles away in space. We can tell you what's happening, you know, this and that.
Yeah.
These rocks that are colliding in this galaxy and such, blah, blah, blah.
If you believe it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if you, but how are you going to fact check it?
How do you know, right?
Yeah, fake news. And that's the thing, is that they purport themselves as being all omnipotent and all-knowing. And then one little virus comes along, and then you're like, we don't know how to handle this. So everybody just kind of like, can everyone go and not interact with each other? Like, everyone just kind of chill out while we try and get a hold on this, because we can't stop it. So then just stop spreading it.
You know, it's never ever really gotten back to normal since COVID.
No.
We act like it's normal again, but it's really not. Like, I don't think people realize the system itself is pretty much failing. Like,
the system has failed
right in front of us.
Yeah.
Like, in real time. But again, this is the time where things are scariest, but also the most promising. Because it's the time where things are really set for like a change, and the time is really now.
Bricks. I mean, to me, the interesting thing is that I wonder how many people are out there genuinely questioning and looking to kind of position themselves in the way that a lot of us that are positioning ourselves are, and maybe don't realize that they can position themselves in that way, which means positioning yourself to get the fuck out of Dodge. Because there's so many people that want to get the fuck out of Dodge, and then they're unaware of how they can actually kind of align themselves with something to get the fuck out of Dodge. And then if you just kind of look at this, like, because I don't know the way you viewed it, but I know if I was you, I might be viewing it in a certain kind of light, because I would maybe be looking at this and being like, what is this for real, for real? You know what I mean?
What is this? What
like
is what?
Kept up.
Oh, yeah.
Because to the uninitiated or to the untrained eye, you might look at it and you'd be like, so is this just like a bunch of people that are going to show up at an event and just be playing dress up in African clothing, in traditional Kemet, you know, garments, and walking around with a bunch of onks, or walking around like this and walking around like that? Like, what is this really?
Is that a shot, low key?
Like, it's not a low key shot. It's a direct shot. That's a missile, straight. because that's the thing, right? Like drop the bomb. But that's the thing is if I was you, that's the way I'd be looking at this.
Yeah, no, that's exact. So like, again, upon first exposure.
Yeah, you can be honest. Bro.
Yeah, upon first exposure, it's like the fact that there was an overwhelming amount of history, an overwhelming amount of resources, and kind of like clarity that this is where this organization comes from, and this is why, this is the mission statement, this is who we are. Like that was a green flag. Like, you have the red flags, like that was a green flag, and I was like, this is how you know that like this is legit. And like, obviously do more investigation and go forward with that, because then once you like start looking into videos of like the meditation, for lack of a better term, meditation, and the spirituality aspect of it, it's different, and like some people can look at it and say this looks like a cult, right?
It is.
But it's like, isn't every religion, isn't every organization that like we kind of indoctrinate ourselves to, and like why are we fighting for these beliefs? Like, what are they based on?
That's interesting that you said that, because a lot of people don't have that perspective. What you just said, you said every institution that we attach ourselves to is basically a cult.
Your job is a cult.
Right.
You religiously have to go there.
Your birthday.
Otherwise you lose it.
Christmas. What else? College. All of these things. They're all cults.
Career.
Right.
You buy into it.
Right.
And you have to give something in order to get something out of it, and like there's a catch.
Well, it becomes the status quo.
Oh yeah.
And then if you don't buy into the status quo, then that's when they're like, hey, this isn't okay. And that becomes a big problem for a lot of people, because anyone that kind of starts to divorce themselves or kind of like detach and kind of pull out the tubes that the system puts in you and feeds you, when you really start to pull those out, it becomes very painful, because you start to realize when you look around, like your mom is in it, your dad is in it, your brother, your sister, you name it, the people, your friends, your family, they're in it. And then you want to almost start like screaming from the rooftops, like it's all a lie.
Yeah, like save yourself.
Yeah, like save yourself before it's too late. But the problem is like you doing that, then everyone's been conditioned to such an extent where even the system has prepared and anticipated that, where they've prepared and anticipated that, where they will ensure that if you do that, the perception that people start having of you is this person's crazy. There's something wrong with this person. And then they try and make you kind of like, kind of go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And they find ways to kind of lull you back in.
Or if they can't do that, then turn everyone against you and keep you quiet.
And
or
ostracize you.
Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah.
Cancel.
Yeah.
They might cancel you. And it's done very deliberately in a way that makes it very difficult for somebody. If you don't have a lot of courage and you're not a very strong individual, you'll fold. And then you'll just be like, let me get back in line.
So it's interesting you say that, right? Because we're speaking about being a revolutionary, right? But one of the questions that I had way back when to the show was that how do we make the change, right? And the common answer is like it starts with yourself, right? And like start with yourself, change yourself, and you'll see that change kind of slowly grow. So it's almost like what do you do, right? Do you you change yourself, and then you just kind of keep to yourself, and if people come to you for some kind of perspective, you give it, or you change yourself, and then you become a beacon, and then you say, hey everyone, scream from the rooftops, and there's a better way, and
Well, I mean, I think screaming from the rooftops becomes the way you live. And I think screaming from the rooftops becomes your qualities. And I think screaming from the rooftops becomes something unspoken but very well expressed. Because the expression of working on yourself and, you know, divorcing yourself from the venom and kind of detoxing those things on a energetic level, on a spiritual level, on a physical level, on a psychological level, is ultimately what will lead you to being able to scream from the rooftops as a act of rebellion of just living. And I think people don't understand that. And then they think that they think that the battle is external. And then they fail to realize that the battle is within. So then the focus becomes, you know, the way your mom is or the way your dad is and all this kind of stuff. And then they just don't focus on themselves. And you find yourself kind of suffering from the same kind of psychosis that the system has put there to keep you locked in, but you're not able to break out of it. And we were talking about it last week in terms of healing on the psychological level, healing on the energetic level, healing on the spiritual level, healing on the emotional level, you name it, and all these different levels of healing. And I think that when healing truly becomes the focus, that becomes the act of rebellion or the act of revolution where you're screaming from the rooftops. Because now it's unspoken.
Yeah.
But it's very well expressed in when you walk into a room that this person, there's something about this person that feels cohesive.
Yeah.
But not in a marketing kind of way.
Yeah.
I can't stand marketing.
Yeah.
I can't stand
trying to sell you something.
I can't stand people that try and sell themselves for more than what they are.
Yeah.
Like, because your energy speaks it.
Yeah.
Like, you could be doing something for 17 years and your energy betrays you because your energy speaks to you being a phony. Your energy speaks to you being very inauthentic. And that's why years of doing something can't become the barometer for your ability to maybe authentically heal. Maybe the way you are genuinely, like, behind closed doors working on yourself, like, is the difference. Like, that will speak volumes, and that becomes the act of rebellion. And that becomes the act of, you know, screaming from the rooftops to get other people to wake up.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point, then, you know, maybe mom is going to look at you and then say, like, there's something different about you. Maybe your brother is going to look at you, your friend or your family is going to look at you and say, maybe there's something different about you now. Because the focus wasn't screaming from the rooftop, going out and protesting, but then the act of screaming from the rooftop and going out and protesting became the greatest project you could work on, which was yourself. And then once you truly look at yourself and the project becomes you, then you're able to put yourself in a position to begin the journey of healing. That's even where this title for this podcast came from, is from that direct quote by Master Naba about how when you truly reach that point and you truly begin where you're like, hey, you know what? Like, I want to actually walk the real path. You find yourself at the first gate of gates. Can you pull that up, Kenny Bashu, for us?
We haven't been using them.
We haven't been using them because, I mean, I think we have to kind of we have to move away from our Funk Master Flex night and then really bring some sounds in of lectures from Master Naba.
I have a suggestion.
Yeah, go for it.
Just because, like, you know, the bomb drop is it's a saying, it's a term, right? To drop a bomb is like dropping wisdom. But, you know, if we're in, you know, practicing, or like we're upholding indigenous values and the values of nature, right? What about using a lightning strike? Or like thunder?
Hey, man, I'm down. That's kind of like, that kind of supports my name in terms of Sa. So, you know, when Sa...
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, when Sa's not with it, something's not going according to plan in terms of the way that the divine laid it out, there's a yell and then lightning strikes.
Yeah, because like if we drop a bomb, it's kind of like who else drops bombs, right? And who else?
Yeah, that's true. Maybe we'll add the lightning bolt. Like, yeah, that was Sa telling you to, get in line, drop some order to the disorder in your life. But I think that's a great point. That's a great question that I think a lot of people maybe don't question, because the way I look at it is, what are the things that the system doesn't actually want you to do? And then those are the things you go do.
Well,
because if they want you to do it, or they tell you that it's acceptable, or this is an avenue that's okay for you to utilize in terms of rebelling or committing an act of revolution, then that's not something that will actually get you somewhere.
like protesting.
Because there's a guy that I know. I was going through my phone the other day because I've had the same phone number for like 19 years, and I changed my phone number. And so I was deleting a bunch of messages, and I deleted like over 300 contacts from my phone. Because I'm like, I'm never going to talk to this person. I hope this person never calls me. I'm glad I changed my number. Hopefully this person will never be able to contact me ever again. A lot of people of that 300 that I deleted. And there was a guy that I was deleting his number from my phone, and I remember how he always would say, because he used to be on the whole, like the system is this and the system is that. And then anytime something that would pop up that seemed like a viable option, but was like genuinely actually just another alternative that the system was presenting, and he was right about a lot of it, because technically there's a lot of things that are rooted in the system that become very difficult for you to utilize, to get out, but you think that they're alternative options to get yourself out. He would call them controlled opposition. And he would just say, that's controlled opposition. That's controlled opposition. That's controlled opposition. And that's like a real thing that people maybe don't understand, is controlled opposition is there to make you feel like you're doing something that's getting you out of the situation, but it's not.
May you give an example, just like for clarity for myself and for everyone, because like I kind of understand where you're going, but like to like really.
You mean of controlled opposition?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean these like fake comedic societies, those are controlled opposition. These New Age spirituality, that's controlled opposition, because what makes it New Age is the fact that it's just religion all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything that you see within the system that's coming from religion, and if you're coming from a scientific perspective, is controlled opposition.
Okay.
Everything that you see that's coming from politics, if you're a religious person, is controlled opposition. Because they make you think that these things aren't actually connected.
It's like
but they are.
It's
and
like the
controlled.
Democrats and the Republicans. Like you might have one political party versus another political party, and they might say there's like the left wing and then the right wing, but it's really the same bird. So you can't really say, okay, I'm going to go with this option because this option seems like it's more righteous versus this other option, because both options are really working in tangent together to keep the same system in a perpetual state.
Because I was going to ask, even to add on to that, to these examples, like a hybrid car now, or like an electric car.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
But they're just going to turn it off.
Well, turn it off.
You say the wrong thing, they're going to turn it off.
Yeah.
You saw the one that blew up the other day?
No.
Yeah, so there
Where
was
did it blow
one.
up?
So I think it was on a highway somewhere. So the guy was driving it and it malfunctioned. So then it just kept driving. And then it crashed into some other cars and it like blew up or something like that.
Damn, what kind of car was it? Was it a Tesla?
I think it was a Tesla.
It was a Tesla?
Yeah.
That guy must have pissed off Elon.
But there's a lot of stuff like that too. Like
Elon's like, turn off his driving, his steering wheel.
Or you don't pay your car note. They just turn the machine on and then the car drives
and the car drives
to the
back
lot
with you.
with you in it.
It locks. It's like, must return to factory.
Solar power. That's a good one.
I mean,
well, sorry. I feel like I gave a bad example, because Elon Musk is like, maybe he's trying. Maybe he's going on the right path.
Elon?
Yeah, because I don't know if you
I
saw.
don't know. I don't know him.
There's an interview recently where he told. I know, but like for what he speaks for and what he strives for, right?
Yeah.
You know, like he's trying, but like whether or not it's actually working is debatable. But where he like told advertisers to F off because they were blackmailing him for I forget exactly what, but he's like, you know
They
what?
were leaving the platform because of whatever he said is considered anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
What
Or he
platform?
supported.
Twitter?
He owns Twitter, so
yeah.
advertisers have been pulling from utilizing Twitter, and he was basically saying that it's a organized attack. In that what they're doing is that they're pulling advertising funds to basically say to him, like, you're not a good person.
Yeah.
Like, you don't fit our agenda.
Yeah.
And the thing is that it's very specific companies. It's like Walmart, Disney. It's like these huge companies. I don't know the exact list, but maybe Kenny Bosch can pull up the exact list. But it's become something that is exhibiting that the reason why they killed Martin Luther King is because that's how he told everyone to start functioning in the 60s. And that's why they killed him. They didn't kill him because he was, on the cutting edge per se. They killed him because he then told everyone, he said, you know what? He was like, now I feel, and that's where that quote comes from, I feel like I have led my people into a burning building.
Yes.
Is because he came to the realization where he was like, now if we're truly going to hit them how they need to be hit, then don't buy this, don't do this, don't do that, and boycott them economically. And we need to find a viable option and get out of here. And I think he started to veer toward that kind of Pan-Africanism. Maybe that's the most accessible way I could say it for people, is maybe Martin Luther King started to veer toward Pan-Africanism and align himself more with Kwame Ture, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael, within the civil rights movements, in terms of like, you got to get out of here. Like, you can't stay in here. And then that's when they killed him.
Because he was no longer controlled opposition.
Because he was no longer controlled opposition, because he wanted everyone to continue to stay in the system. And he was fighting for a bigger seat at the table. And it was fighting to ensure that you somehow got bigger crumbs, instead of being like, this table's not for me. I don't have a place set for me at this table. No one's going to be serving me any food. No one even wants me at this table. And let me get out of here.
Yeah. I mean, because I know that there was a
Yeah, I
quote
know. I
queued
think,
up,
Kenny Bosch, did you get the list of companies?
Yeah. So it says that besides Walmart, there was also Walt Disney, the Walt Disney Company, IBM, NBC Universal, excuse me, and NBC's parent company Comcast have also decided to stop spending on it.
Those are huge companies.
I didn't know
Huge
Comcast
companies.
owned NBC.
Yeah.
You know that most of the there's only like 5 media companies in the whole world,
Yeah.
and they own each other. So it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult to get information out there if it's not coming through one of those specific channels and avenues.
And they're all owned by the you-know-who's.
Yeah, and they're all owned by the same people and the same, they all do the same thing. So, yeah, I mean, that's why when Elon said it, he said, Bob, if you're in the audience, because he's talking about the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger.
Yeah.
Because even, I don't know if you guys were keeping up with the Hollywood strike, the actors strike, but in particular, he had made some comments that like, we're going to wait this out until people lose their homes. Like, we're going to wait this out until people, like, are dead broke. And then that's when we'll be able to set the terms of how we want it to be. Because the whole fight that the actors and that the writers were making is that now that there's this synthetic version of genies AI, artificial intelligence, now that there's this mechanical version of genies, then you don't need human beings to do the work. Because I don't know, did you guys see the movie The Flash?
No.
But in the movie The Flash, there's a point in time where the Flash kind of opens up these like gates into other dimensions or other like multiverses, other worlds. And when he does it, there's a Superman that's played by Nicolas Cage. And there's like the Superman that was like the Christopher Reeve Superman. And they weren't actually in the film. Those were computer generated versions of those people.
Well, that's interesting.
So they already started doing it.
But that's interesting. So would the actors get paid for the use of their image?
No. That's what the fight.
Yeah.
That's what the fight was about. And you have to understand that someone like Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, like he's like, who cares? He's like, whatever, because his are gonna be taken care of. Like the things he has are gonna be taken care of. But that's what that whole fight was about. It was about the fact that people are saying that you can't replace us. Because even now they're using like opening credits of shows as AI generated things. Instead of getting people to like make them, now they're becoming AI generated. So then they're already showing like, you know what? Like, hey, screw you.
Yeah.
We have ChatGPT or we have OpenBot, whatever, yada, yada, yada. And we don't need to utilize human labor and human resources.
My thing is, how is it possible for them to use your image, though, in that way?
Because
is it
you
because you signed it away?
Because you signed it away. Because once you sign those contracts in the fine print is the fact that they can use your image and your likeness in perpetuity, which means they can use it forever.
Wow.
Which means that even when you're gone, they can use your image and your voice and your likeness. That's what the Black Mirror episode.
I know which one you're talking about. With Salma Hayek.
Yeah, something Joan.
Yeah.
Or Everybody Hates Joan or
Yeah.
something like that. That's what that's about. Because that's why I'm saying, like, I don't know. Because it kind of seems like that's kind of the stuff that Elon is kind of still doing. Is still kind of involved in, is like artificial intelligence and technological achievements and all that kind of stuff.
Neuralink and all that nonsense.
Neuralink and all that kind of stuff. But I just think that he's someone that's maybe not, like there.
I think what it is
for that.
I think what it is this. There's a clear agenda, but at the same time, in that agenda, there's two factions. And those two factions are fighting with each other over who has supremacy over the technological advances. So it's not necessarily that Elon Musk himself is like on the quote-unquote good side, but it's just that he's just not on the same exact side as the people we might perceive as the bad guys.
He maybe just doesn't play the game with those people,
right?
With those said people.
He's like a Joker.
And that's different, huh?
He's like a Joker, kind of like a, well, not really, but
you mean like a Joker in the terms of like the
Batman chaotic.
I thought you meant like a Joker in the terms of like within the court. How the Joker is able to maybe wear multiple different faces and maybe make moves or do things that someone else within the court wouldn't be able to do. Because, that's where that kind of notion comes from, right?
Okay.
Is like it comes from the Joker being able to maybe say something about the king that another aristocrat could not.
Yeah. And then it could be a joke, and that way his head won't get chopped off because it was a joke.
So then that individual is able to make moves that maybe someone else within the court would not have been able to make.
Yeah.
That's why if you're truly dealing with someone that's intelligent, they learn how to hide certain things behind humor. Because you know how to play certain things.
Yeah.
Very, very, very dangerous individuals know how to make themselves appear actually more joke oriented than they are.
Yeah. So I because now that we cleared up, this Elon Musk's role in this, it got me thinking about the COVID protest, the Freedom Convoy trucker situation that was happening in Canada, where we're talking about controlled opposition.
Yeah, controlled opposition.
Controlled opposition, and like we say that like the right to protest, peacefully protest, is like you have that right, And then when you exercise that right and you don't follow the rules, then they, governments have the ability to shut you down. And if you use money to fund that protest, then the governments have the means to also shut down your funds and take away your money and label you as a terrorist. And then now, like, they're going to court over this, right? They're getting charged. I forget for what, but the people that led the Freedom Convoy protests that occupied the capital of Canada are getting charged because of, you know, their motives, and, you know, because it was against the system. And, like, I mean, they weren't killing anyone.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I would be kind of careful about is, like, you don't actually know if those people are in jail or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe some of those people are just kind of faceless people that kind of show up on TV. Because the thing is like, they're very, very intelligent about being able to show you maybe a few images of people and maybe some footage of people maybe doing certain things. But then it becomes very difficult to kind of track who those people are in their day-to-day lives, aside from names that they present to you and stories that they tell you in terms of where this person is coming from and this and that. So it becomes very kind of dangerous to kind of believe that maybe those things are actually occurring.
Do you remember
based on who they're making it seem is doing it? Not to say that didn't actually happen, but who it's populated by is different.
Yeah.
Do you remember the migration when Trump was was president? Right, there was a migration, a so-called migration from, I think it was like the border of, say, somewhere in Central America, but they said they were walking from South America into Central America, and it was like a huge campaign.
It was a
huge thing where they were saying, oh, this is a protest against Trump and him trying to build a wall, and they're going to march and they're going to go and cross the border and all this stuff. So the thing is, that protest was completely fake, because all of the people that were there marching were all actors. Because there were actually footage and images of those same people going to, like, the trailers to get their lunch. And then they would go and film themselves as if they're like migrants who've been displaced. And they're saying it was because of Trump and Trump's regime and his policies. That's
that's like when the ISIS videos were coming out.
Yeah.
And they were showing the ISIS videos, because as an independent filmmaker, I would be sitting there and I would be picking the videos apart. Because I'm like, damn, they got cranes? I'm like, that's a crane shot. I'm like, cranes are like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, I'm like, damn, they're fun. They got like a Toyota sponsorship. I'm like, who's editing these films? I'm like, they got film editing software in ISIS? I'm like, where are they getting all this stuff from? Just a logical person that's like, I'm sitting here trying to, you know, string together a few coins, trying to shoot a short film. And then that's when I realized that someone's like, yeah, if you want to shoot this short film, it's going to cost $5,000. And then I'm like, the short film's like 5 minutes. I'm like, it costs like $30,000 to pull this kind of shot off. It costs like, you know, this to pull this kind of shot off. But then you start looking at it and then you start thinking to yourself, if you don't have that kind of like thinking that goes into something, then you won't be able to maybe catch on to the ruse. And you won't be able to maybe catch on to the things, because, I mean, you know, you can take any type of footage, and if you understand how to present the context, you can make any type of footage work to your advantage if you understand how to present it and how to kind of make it kind of, you know, look the way it needs to look. Because, I mean, you can control someone's perception just by presenting certain things to them in a certain kind of way.
Well, I guess with AI now, it's going to be even more dangerous.
That's the point. That's why the whole, you know, strike, that's what it was about. It was about AI. It wasn't about anything else. It was about AI.
Well, it's interesting you brought that up, like AI, because there's even incidences now where I forget what it was, but that it was a video of a council meeting or some kind of official government meeting, and there's supposed to be an audience. But in the audience, if you look closer, and like the audience, if you look at the image or the video, that like it shows like it's full of people. But if you look closer at the image, then you can see that the same, like they replicate the same people to make it look like the audience is.
That's how they make crowds in movies.
Yeah.
They don't actually have all those people there.
Yeah.
They maybe have like 30 people, and then they just digitally replicate those 30 people in the whole crowd.
Yeah, and if it looks realistic in movies, then like how is the news not the same thing, right?
That's what I'm saying, is that it's like to someone, like as a filmmaker seeing those kind of things, I'm like, I know what kind of shot that is. I know what kind of thing that is. And then you just are sitting there and you're like, something's not right.
So why do filmmakers and actors and people like that don't ever just say something?
Because it depends on if you're even at a point to even understand how deep the rabbit hole goes in the way that the machine works. Because it's a big machine. And you can be in the machine and not even have a self-awareness in terms of understanding your place within that machine. And a lot of people don't. Because the way that they reward those that abide by the machine and don't have a self-awareness to the machine is by propping you up and giving you more and more stuff within the machine. Like when they talk about Hollywood being like a fraternity, when they talk about Hollywood being like a secret society or run by secret societies, it's because in order to get to certain heights, you have to be down with certain agendas. And you can't present yourself as being in opposition or antagonistic to those set agendas. So they have to vet you and they watch you. And they make sure that you're down for certain things because then you won't go rogue and then you won't reveal certain things. So it's not that those people may not realize it. Some of them, they don't realize it. Some of those people, they understand how to control your perception around those people. So that even if those people come out and say it, you're just like, that person's a nut job, or that person's crazy, or that person's this, or that person's that. So then you're not going to look at it. You're not going to listen to it. Because that person could be speaking the truth, but then you're like, that person's just crazy. Because they know how to control the perception around it. They're prepared. They prepare themselves for everything. That's how they did it with fake news. Because all those reports are coming out about like those real authentic emails coming out about what these people were doing, these politicians were doing, and how they were functioning, their personal emails. And they were authenticated by the a digital footprint, that these were real emails that were coming from these people. And then there was an uproar, and people were like, we need to go, like, it's like some Rome shit where they're like, let's go cut off their heads. Like it was like let's revolt and go chop off the heads of these politicians. And then the way that they got a hold on it is fake news. They introduced this thing of like, that's fake news. That's not real news. Because then you get to trivialize the perception around it, and then that becomes the psychological ploy. That becomes a psychological trick on you. Like in order to truly divorce yourself from the system, you have to understand the way that the system uses things against you. And then you have to understand when the system is using those things against you, how to effectively analyze and break those things down. And if that thought process is not occurring, then you will find yourself forever trapped in the house of mirrors that the system wants you to be trapped in. So I mean, this is you know,
we can go on and on about it.
Yeah, it's a very, very intelligent. They use, you know, the upper echelons of psychology. They use the upper echelons of spirituality. They use the upper echelons of emotional, you know, emotional approaches, and they understand the human being very well. And in understanding, they know how to use it against you.
Yeah, because even it got me thinking about there's like a testimony that some girl gave back in 2000. I forget exactly the details of this, but it was a testimony that someone gave about Iraqi soldiers. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Iraqi soldiers and like how they took babies out of incubators and like did all these horrible things. And then later, a couple of months later, a journalist actually was able to uncover that the person who gave that testimony was actually a daughter of a American, a daughter of a American representative. Sorry, it's losing. Like I'm losing the thought just because I watched it loosely. But the daughter of a politician, American diplomat. What's the term? From an embassy. An ambassador, yeah. And she was coached on how to deliver this story, how to deliver a story in order to sway Congress, I believe, in order to sway and get the vote of politicians to go to start this war. And then, yeah, if that's if that testimony that you give in the court of law is perceived as real, and you win people's emotions, and you could do anything, but it could be fake, and then fake news.
There's so many ways that can get you, man, and if you don't understand how they can get you, then you will forever be at the mercy of them getting you, and you won't understand how they're getting you. So I mean, you have to. I think, if you don't put yourself in a position to understand those things, then you're kind of handicapping yourself, because a lot of people don't even think about that. And a lot of people don't put themselves in a position to consider it.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to move to some of the questions in the chat. And again, we please want to encourage all of our viewers to like, comment, subscribe, check out all of the resources we have online, and support in any which way that you can. And I'd like to go into some of the questions. And so Chem Warrior, or Zul Bukande, is asking, is Darfur region in Western Sudan headed for independence? What is the major cause this? Will this be balkanization of the Sudan into different regions? I was on the phone with my dad the other day, because my family's from Sudan, and they're technically in the region where all the fighting is actually occurring, or the main fighting is occurring, which is the capital city. And my dad said to me the other day, he said, now I'm starting to really think about who's really behind this and what's really going on. And we had the conversation very briefly, but he was saying that word on the street is that it's kind of the Arabs. That it's the Arabs that are really kind of funding it and making sure that it happens, because there's an agenda. And he was like, I don't really know what that agenda is. And to the uninitiated, we don't know what that agenda is either. But to the initiated, hey, yeah, people want to find out where their origins are from, and they'll do whatever they can to find out their origins. The next question is from Chem Warrior, Zulbu Kande. Why is it that many Africans reject Kemet as African civilization? How would handle this individuals, or explain to them Kemetic civilization African origin? Because that's why when you go to, you find it in the Caribbean, you find it in India, you find it in Asia, you find it in Africa, you find it in all these different areas that aren't from the European regions, where people are attracted to looking like the oppressor. And they will do anything they can to look like the oppressor. It's self-hate. So you can't technically take self-hate out of somebody else. That's a process they have to go through themselves. That's a process of realization that they have to have. So I don't know. I don't know why Africans can hate themselves to an extent. I don't know. I don't think it's all Africans. I think it's some. But it just goes down to the psychological plays that colonization uses in order to kind of get you viewing things or looking at things in a certain kind of way. So I would say that don't waste your time trying to convince people about the origins of African civilization and the civilization as we know it, being from Africa. I would say make your focus yourself.
I would also just to add that a lot of Africans from Western, Central, and even Southern Africa, it's not that they're not aware, but the thing is, the people who are aware and really know, they are just not going to share with you that they are aware and that they really know. A lot of times it's just that simple. And yes, unfortunately, like Tutipsa said, there is a lot of self-hate in a lot of the communities. And that's just because, unfortunately, colonialism has done a good job at making us want to be what we're not. Like, I was watching a show the other day, and it was about this white man. He was going to colonize Japan, and the samurai was fighting against the white man, and the white man told them, he was like, I've been amongst you people for about some odd years now. You've tried to cut me out. You've tried to reject what I'm bringing, what Western society is bringing, but I'm going to ensure that I flood these streets, these walls with people that look like me, to the point where you start to look at my face and then think my face is more beautiful than yours, and everything that I am is more, what's the word he used? Just of more value than what you have. And that's just where we find ourselves. And unfortunately, it is what it is. But like I said before, these things are changing. It's a new day, it's a new dawn.
Well spoken.
Sorry. Next question is from Zul Bukande again. Is will Eastern Europe learn from Western European colonial history and choose a different path, or will they continue to rehearse the African is below them mentality? I don't think Eastern Europeans think that they're above Africans. I think they view Africans as being in a advantageous position for them to align themselves with, which is why you see Putin going about things the way he's going about things. Even Zelensky, or whatever his name is, the president of Ukraine, he was trying to align himself with some of the African nations, hoping that they would not align themselves with Russia. Because now the real focus is going to become the natural resources. It's always been the focus, but now it's going to become impossible to lie about that's what everything has been about from day one, in terms of all these wars and all these instabilities in these regions. And now that Africa is finally getting hip to the game, and then you have leaders that are saying like, hey, enough is enough, like Ibrahim Traoré from Burkina Faso. Shout out to him and to all the work that he's doing, and other leaders in Africa that are saying enough is enough. We gave, people from the older generation their opportunities, and now we're going to take it from them whether they like it or not. And they're leading the charge to say, why are we putting ourselves in a position where we're lower than these people that depend on us for everything? Everything they need, everything that makes the world go around, we have it. So Putin is intelligent enough to go to these people with the right approach and the right way, in a dignified manner, that these people are saying, yeah, okay, we'll play ball. And that's why they're kicking out France. That's why they're kicking out these countries, because they're like, you know what, go fuck yourselves. Get out. And that's what it comes down to. So I don't think they're putting themselves above. I think they're putting themselves finally at the same level and they're like, hey, you know what? This is advantageous for us to function in this way. The other question is from Zulbukande Cam Warrior. How many more questions are there? Okay, well, is it wise for the president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, to partner with Paul Kagame of Rwanda, knowing to being accomplice of the Democratic Republic of Congo crisis? You know, going back to maybe the example of being in the royal court, there are only certain people that know how to make certain moves. Certain aristocrats know how to, make certain moves in order to navigate through the aristocracy in an intelligent manner. So I would say that the question maybe isn't, is it wise for Ibrahim Traoré to align himself with him? The question would be, is it wise for the president of Rwanda to align himself with the president, Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso? Because then you never know what could come out of that, as opposed to the other way around. I think that people's intelligence are often underestimated. So if there's something that Ibrahim Traoré is doing, and that's what he sees as an avenue to further the position he's taking and how he's functioning, then I would say, hey, you know what? I'm not mad at it, because I don't know. I don't know what's going into the intelligence of that move. So, I don't know. What will you say? Another question from Zulbukande. This is the question is, what will you say to those who steal and bend the law of the modern society to provide for their family or themselves with no blood in their hands? I'd say keep doing it. If you got to rob, lie, steal, cheat here in this society, the whole thing is based on robbing, lying, stealing, and cheating and killing. So it doesn't make you dishonest.
Just don't rob any old ladies.
Yeah. Just rob, steal, kill, and do all that stuff to the rich. That's their problem.
Be a Robin Hood.
Yeah, be Robin Hood. Keep it going. That's a joke. What is the best advice for someone on the journey of healing? Because this is very challenging, sometimes impossible.
I think you answered that already.
Yeah, I think I answered that, but I would just say find out what type of healing you truly need. Because the system's only going to be able to give you physical healing, but they're not even going to give you healing. They just know how to cessate symptoms. So I would say find out what kind of healing you actually need, and then actually get that kind of healing. And then once you understand the true composition of a human being and you truly understand what it means, then you can truly understand what you're lacking and what you need. And in that, you can find yourself in a position to be able to truly gain the healing that you require. And on Cost of Natural Healing, ANHlife.org.
I wanted to add just back to the question about Eastern Europeans kind of looking below, or like putting
themselves above.
Putting themselves. I mean, the Polish mentality, like they do that though. They do that.
I mean, I'm not speaking on the Polish per se. I'm talking about like.
Oh yeah, everyone. But like, that there are people that aren't, and there are people that are realizing that Africa is a major player in the game, but there are also people that are not doing that in the Eastern European scope, and they're following Western ideologies as well and values. So it's like be mindful of who, like know who, like when you say Eastern European, like there's a There's a line.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay.
But I'm just talking about more politically now, the countries that are aligning themselves with Africa,
yes.
more so.
Yeah.
But then the other question, this is from NWA Soul. I don't know how to pronounce this, so I don't know. But I have friends who travel overseas for music. It seems like food on the other side is a bit healthier. With everything we now know about the food industry in the U.S., would you recommend vegetarianism? Even with all the crap and the industrialization of the food in America, no, I wouldn't recommend vegetarianism, because you have to understand that the body needs certain things in order to function properly. I would just suggest consuming only certain things on a periodic basis, which means you don't want to eat all of the industrialized stuff that they're going to pump out as much as possible all the time, which means try and eat the stuff like turkey, try and eat the stuff like fish that maybe it's a bit harder for them to pump out all the time, and for them to just kind of, you know, fatten up the chicken by giving it all the hormones. And then when you go to Chick-fil-A or you go to Wingstop or you go to wherever, you Buffalo Wild Wings, and then you're like, why are my wings this small? Why is my chicken wing this small? Why isn't my chicken wing as big as my palm? It's because they're pumping it full of drugs when it shows up and the chicken wing is as big as your palm. Mm-hmm. So I would say stay away from those kind of things, but understand that the human being needs balance in their diet, and meat is a necessary equation. Meat is a necessary element in the equation of balance. Mm-hmm. So just stay away from the industrialized stuff as much as possible, but then also don't neglect the other side of healing that people don't take into consideration, which is the aspect of cleansing, which means even when you eat certain things, you're still supposed to cleanse the body and not allow those things to sit in the body. And if you don't understand what that means in terms of cleansing, you can go to anhlife.org, and there are a lot of resources there on the African indigenous way of doing things in terms of going to Merita, living in Merita, and how to cleanse yourself, and the way that the indigenous function and the way that they approach health and what that looks like in true health, and not these ideologies that everybody seems to adopt here, thinking that they're somehow gaming the system. But the system is still waiting there for you, and then you still get cancer. You could work out 5 times a week. You can, eat right, all this kind of stuff, and then you can still get cancer. Because if you're not cleansing and you're neglecting certain things spiritually or physically, you can still find yourself in the same boat as everybody else that eats McDonald's every day, that eats Chick-fil-A every day, that ingests all of the poisons willingly and all of the stimulants and all of the stuff that they can't get away from. You could still find yourself in that same position as them, because you didn't understand that there were other elements to the equation, like cleansing, like taking care of your spirit, taking care of this, taking care of that, checking out what it means to be energetically healthy, and all of those different things. So there are many things that go into it.
Even the vegetables are industrialized too. That's a whole nother thing.
Like corn?
Sorry, it's pronounced Noir Soul. That's the way the person said. DeMarcus has a question about the last episode. This is going to be the last question before we move to rapid fire, which is, I got questions about the last episode. How exactly do we honor our parents, and what is a good relationship? Reality has its channels, which means to exist, you have to have your male channel and you have to have your female channel, or your poles, your male pole and your female pole, right? And so the male pole, your father, female pole, your mother. And what that means is that existentially, there's a reality you cannot divorce yourself from, which means that these are the two poles that came together for there to be a third. So if you despise one of those poles, it's like you're saying to the existence, I despise myself. Or if you have a problem with one of those poles, it's like you're saying, I have a problem with myself. So when's the last time you met someone that hates themselves that is able to actually get anything done? Very rarely. So just from a practical standpoint, it becomes about understanding that you can't divorce yourself from the fact that your mom is this pole and your father is that pole. And so you might as well maintain a good relationship to the best of your ability so that you don't become an obstacle to your own evolution and you don't poison yourself. Let's hit it, Kenny Bashi. But first, a word from our sponsor. Can you do it?
You gonna give me the thing to read?
I thought you could do it without the thing.
So, Sauce Hot Sauce. Sauce Hot Sauce began in 2007 when a group of traveling students were traveling in West Africa and they were thinking of ways to support charitable causes. So one of the students happened to be an artisanal hot sauce chef, and right then and there, Sauce Hot Sauce was born. So they support charitable causes. What? That was wrong?
Yeah, you're wrong. You left out a paragraph.
All right, so can you read the rest?
No. Yeah, you did it.
You see?
You did it without. You did it without.
Does it have to be exactly that?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
All right, so give me the thing to read it. Let me redo this.
Yeah.
Sauce Hot Sauce began in 2007 when a small group of students traveling in West Africa were trying to think of ways to support charitable projects. One of the students traveling happened to be an artisanal hot sauce chef, and right there, Sauce Hot Sauce was born. Since then, Sauce has prided itself in making exceptional artisanal hot sauce with high-quality ingredients to support good causes. We continue to do this with the best and tastiest offering of sauce flavors to date, with a focus on supporting displaced families in the Fada and Goma region of Burkina Faso with the revenues of our sales. Sauce Hot Sauce. Please support charitable causes and get yourself some sauce.
All right, Kenny Bashi, the floor is yours.
Oh, hey. Is my mic on? Oh, yeah, it's on. I can hear myself. Okay, so first up, we got fake news in Gaza. So, Abrahamic propaganda at its best. Fake news promotes mass conversion to Christianity. So, there's a story circulating in the news right now that more than 200 Muslims in Gaza sought out Jesus Christ after all of them had dreams where they saw Jesus on the same night. So, a professor of New Testament studies at Houston Christian University, Michael Licona, says that he received a report from underground Christian ministries in Palestine saying, and I quote, "Over the past 2 days, we have ministered to hundreds of fathers who have lost most, if not all, of their children in the war. As we moved these men to safety, we fed them, washed their clothes, and began to read the Bible to them, sharing the way of peace through Jesus. Then a big miracle happened. Last night, Jesus appeared to more than 200 of them in their dreams. They have come back to us to learn more from God's word and are asking how to follow Jesus." End quote. And then right after this, this guy posted this. What's his name? Michael Licona. He posted that on Facebook, and then right after that, in the same post, he said, "I side with Israel in this war, not necessarily for theological reasons, but because Hamas and those backing it are pure evil."
So,
Dun dun dun.
I have a question. So, all of them saw Jesus, right? Did he look alike in all of their dreams? was it just one collective?
Was it Korean Jesus? Was it African Jesus?
Palestinian Jesus.
Was it Palestinian? That's the real Jesus, though, right? Like the real Jesus is gonna be the one that looks like the Palestinians.
Exactly.
Oh man.
I mean,
Can't
you know,
make this
hey,
shit up.
It's no, you can't. Hey, shout out to all those people, whatever the hell they're doing.
All right. Next up, Pfizer, the same people who brought us the vaccine for the coronavirus, they halt a study on obesity pills after subjects report nausea. So basically, Pfizer shares sank on Friday when the drug maker said it would abandon a twice daily obesity treatment after more than half of the patients in a clinical trial stopped taking it. Obesity treatments are one of the hottest and more lucrative areas for medicine right now, and Pfizer reveals Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly already have injectable drugs on the market, but Novo and Pfizer are trying to develop pill versions that would be easier for patients to take. The drug maker also said side effects for the pills were mild but common, and up to 73% of patients experienced nausea and 47% dealt with vomiting. Researchers did see statistically significant weight loss in adults with obesity but without type 2 diabetes. It ranged from nearly 7% to more than 11% in patients taking the pills.
Bro, what? Bro, this is crazy. Like, this place is just amazing. It never ceases to amazes me. So you give people poisonous food, you give people sugary food, then you market the food on commercials and television, all of this stuff. Then now you have people who are just lazy, who are eating the food, and then instead of telling them or promoting to them, look, this is the healthier
They
option.
get you addicted to it.
Yeah, they get you addicted to it. And then after that, once you're addicted, now they're giving you a drug that you probably can't live without. And you don't change your eating habits probably. You don't stop what you're doing. You're just gonna take a pill. Just stop eating, bro.
Yeah, don't eat that stuff. Just stop ingesting that stuff. Like, because the thing is that what they never stop to actually think about are the side effects of these pills.
Right.
Like, the side effects sound so much worse than the actual problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a pill, because I watch football, and like when the commercials come on, that's when I pay more attention.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to see like the drugs that they're marketing, because they always show like the guy that's like suffering from erectile dysfunction walking through the park now,
Smiling.
and like smiling and like doing better. And then like when they're showing you that, or they're showing the guy like, you know, he's doing better with his erectile dysfunction, and then like his 60-year-old wife is like happy.
Wait, rephrase.
What? 6-year-old wife?
You
What do you
didn't
mean?
say that correctly. I know you didn't.
His
Well,
6-year-old wife?
60-year-old. I said
Thank
60.
you.
Oh,
Yeah, I said six. You guys heard 6? No, I said
I heard
60.
6.
Okay. That's why I was like, what are you guys talking about? Did I say husband? I was like, I meant to say wife. But anyway, his 60-year-old wife is there happy, like, oh man, yeah, Craig's finally got it back. And then that's when they start talking about like may cause suicidal thoughts, but they say it so fast.
Right.
Heart attack.
And they're like, may cause if you start to suffer from kidney failure.
Bleeding through your anus.
Stop taking this drug immediately.
Bleeding from the anus is
Yeah.
always crazy. They say it so casually.
Yeah,
They say it in every one
Yeah,
of them.
they say it, and they're just like, if you start profusely bleeding, stop this drug immediately and contact your medical provider. But they always
But they
say,
gave it to me.
yeah,
Why would I
but
contact
exactly. And then what are they gonna do? They're gonna be like, their guy's gonna call Pfizer and be like, so this guy is bleeding profusely from his anus. What should I do? They're gonna be like, quick, administer the anti-drug to the erectile dysfunction drug. Like, I just don't understand it. But you know, hey, if you keep allowing yourself to be led to slaughter, then you know, hey, you deserve it. You
I thought
deserve
that
it.
this might be a good topic to highlight the fast, because like Ajaz was saying, you know, it's just ridiculous to think that you can save yourself from the same people who are giving you this and now trying to give you that to get the weight off. But just stop eating for a little while. Stop eating for a little while.
Just stop.
So can you guys touch on like what the fast that's happening right now in the Kemetic calendar?
Yeah, so right now is the period in which for in layman's terms, this is the period in which you can say nature, or the force that allows nature to be, the force that you can see in nature that gives you the greenery, the leaves, the trees, the vegetation. This is the period in which that force of nature is, like, in a sense, asleep or dead. We call it Wisser. Some people call him Asar, Aset, whatever. But Wisser, the ancestral father, is now in the world of the dead, the Imentet. So this is the period in which his principle is like asleep. You can see it in the nature where everything dies during this period. So this is the period in which we are trying to fast in honoring that progression of him being in the world of the dead. So we're without our father right now. So we're in a way honoring him to kind of like honor that period of, okay, there's no vegetation, there's no plants, there's food is not in abundance. So we're in a way fasting to stay away from that, but really the fast is truly about trying to grow and develop yourself spiritually. Because if you think about it, when our ancestors were looking at nature and looking to the principles of nature and seeing how the reality plays in our life, then you can see this is the period in which you wouldn't have access to certain foods. So even nature right now, what we would call like evil, those dark things, the negative things, those are the things where are more powerful in this time, because nature is not as active, because Wisser is dead. So this is the time in which all those evil things will come at you, like all the temptations. If you will even see sickness on the rise during these periods, you'll see all of the way you think, the way you feel, all of those things are going to be very heavy on you in this period. So we fast during this period to kind of like reinforce ourselves and reinforce our resilience and our strength. So we're fasting not just away from food, but it can be away from things that you watch, things that you think, things that you used to do. It's like a period to kind of reset yourself and reset who you are spiritually and build better and new habits, just the same way how nature is going to reset. So when our ancestral father returns, then you'll see all the vegetation and the food and everything return. So that's kind of like what the fast is for right now. So we're trying to reset ourselves spiritually, just the same way nature is trying to reset itself, or will reset itself.
And you might just lose some weight too.
Yeah.
Everyone keeps saying I'm losing weight. So I'm like, am I? Or is my shirt just smaller?
Two Teeps is on the Pfizer pills.
Yeah, you know, I have not started bleeding from the anus profusely, so don't worry, guys. I'll let you know if it starts.
You know, they're very good at the way they do it, though, because it's late night, then you see those commercials. I mean, one time I was up, and they were talking about a weight gain pill, and I was like, a weight gain pill. And I thought about it. I'm like, wait, no, don't do that. Why are you doing that?
It's a deal with the devil, man. It's a catch-22. You take those pills, and then the catch-22 is always like, they're like, may cause congestional heart failure. And you're just like, huh?
I think that commercial said it would cause erectile dysfunction, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, man.
All right.
The system.
Enough of the anal bleeding. On to the next one. So next up, we have a secret Freemason ritual caught on hidden camera. So independent Catholic journalist Kyle Clifton, who goes by the name of Kyle Undercover online, has supposedly exposed some of Freemasonry's most secret rituals via hidden camera. After posting the videos online, Kyle has supposedly been receiving death threats, and his family's been being watched and all this kind of stuff. So, filmed with a concealed camera, his footage documents the induction ceremony of a third-degree Master Mason, which is the highest degree of Freemasonry in the Blue Lodge. Before members can choose to deepen their membership through more specific routes, such as the Scottish Rite. One of his videos has been viewed more than 7 million times on X. After publishing the ceremonies, Kyle went back to the Catholic Church and was like baptized over again, because he had to become a part of the Freemason like lodge to like get access. I think he was there for somewhere around like 6 months, He
Yeah.
like befriended the people and
Secret
started
agent?
to become
I mean,
a part of the.
no, what sleeper cell?
Exactly. So, in an exclusive interview with LifeSite News, he says, "I was baptized and confirmed into the church just 3 months after shooting this video, and yes, I will never go back. It is against the church and the ceremonies and oaths that you have to take. That is all repented for."
The thing I find interesting though is that's like the pot calling the kettle black, is because the church is in on that stuff too, and it just like they're all in bed with each other, and then they try to make it seem like, you see those dirty politicians over there, but they're all in bed with each other. Like, we're not falling for that anymore. Like, you could try as much as you want to convince us that the politicians aren't in bed with the religious people, and that the religious people aren't in bed with the politicians, and that the scientists aren't in bed with the politicians, and vice versa, and so on and so forth, and that the scientists aren't in bed with the religious people. But come on, man. Like, at this point in time, like, if you're not catching on to the game, then it just like there's some land I want to sell you in Florida.
It's that controlled opposition again.
Like, it just, I want to really want to sell you some high value land in Florida. And while we're at it, I am also a Nigerian prince that is looking for his princess.
You remember the Nigerian prince who sold the airport?
Oh man, the guy that sold the airport to Japan. I held the Japanese in such high esteem, and then I'm just like, wow. I'm like, you guys are stupid.
Nah, bro. You look. I don't know if you ever talked to a Nigerian scammer.
I have.
These guys are top notch.
Yeah, they are top notch, but I guess it's some about Africans that it's very difficult to kind of scam other Africans, because you never hear about other Africans being scammed by Nigerians.
Yeah, that's true.
You only hear about people outside of Merita being scammed by Nigerians.
That's true.
You never hear. When's the last time you heard about an African getting scammed?
That's true.
by
I never hear.
Nigerians?
Now that you say that, that's true. Yeah.
Because we just have an understanding of, okay, yeah, people scam. Because there's I think it's like an Egyptian story or something like that. I don't remember. But this guy was walking through the market, and he went to this very illustrious market that everyone was known for being pickpockets. And he says, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill my pockets with useless gems and jewels and rocks and stones. And I'm going to walk through this market. And no one's going to be able to take these things out of my pocket. And so he walks through this illustrious marketplace at the height when everyone is there. And then he makes it to the end. And he still has all the jewels and all the rocks and all the stones in his pocket. So he gets up on something and he screams out to all of them. And he says, aha. He says, I heard that this place was notorious for pickpockets. And yet, I walked through this whole marketplace and none of you were able to pickpocket me. And everyone in the market turns to him and says, we know what you have in your pockets are useless because we took it out and we looked at it.
Put it back.
And that's why we put it back. So that is like Africans in a nutshell dealing with other Africans.
All right, next up, we have the most powerful U.S. diplomat of the Cold War era dies at age 100.
Henry Kissinger.
Henry Kissinger. So while many hailed Kissinger for his brilliance and statesmanship, others branded him a war criminal for his support for anti-communist dictatorships, especially in Latin America. In his latter years, his travels were circumscribed by efforts by some countries to arrest or question him about the past foreign U.S. policy. According to Terry Schott, anything that the U.S. is doing right now in terms of power, he's the one who's been shaping that for years at this point. And now that China and Russia are sort of like taking over, it's interesting that he's dying like right now.
Well, I mean, anyone that knows who Henry Kissinger is knows that he's notorious for his negotiating of foreign policies and getting certain powers that don't want to agree to play by the rules in the way that America would like it to be. So, don't hate the player, hate the game. Because, Henry Kissinger I've heard stories about his intelligence and his negotiating prowess prowess, I don't know how you say it, that has, allowed to pull off certain things or do certain things. So, you can't, and don't hate the player, hate the game. Like, hey, now you got somebody like Putin who is maybe like kind of like a modern day Henry Kissinger in terms of the way he's playing everybody. So, it is what it is. There's always shifts in power.
Another hot topic. Atlanta protester sets himself ablaze for Palestine.
Gosh.
So, like you guys know, we actually spoke about this maybe a week or two ago.
Yeah, that was
there was
say,
somebody
like,
who set themselves on fire. No, this is literally like yesterday.
Where?
Wow.
Where in Atlanta?
Not 100% sure.
So was there?
Oh no. So a protester was in critical condition Friday after setting themselves. He set himself on fire outside the Israeli consulate in Atlanta. Authorities said a security guard who actually tried to intervene was also injured. A Palestinian flag found at the scene was a part of the protest, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel for someone that feels like they'd be able to change status quo by setting themselves on fire, because if they don't cover it, then it's just in vain. And like maybe that might have worked like back in the day, but like now, like there's so much happening and people's attention spans are so short that no one's gonna think twice about you setting yourself on fire. Like, I hate to break it to you, but it doesn't make a difference.
A part of me is like, somebody else made him do it.
Yeah, probably. They probably went and like paid, like, how they do like bum fights. They probably would have found someone or took advantage of them and then got them to do it. But it's like, your life doesn't matter as much as you think it does to people. It doesn't. It matters to you. It matters to the people. You're someone's child. It matters to the people that are your parents, and maybe the people that are your family.
Yes.
And maybe a friend.
It's messed up because
But
there's already
other than that, no one gives a shit.
Yeah, there's already so much people dying.
Yeah.
And you setting yourself on fire for people dying.
Yeah, like do something else. Do something radical. Don't set yourself on fire. Live for yourself.
But I feel like it's gotta be like, yo, I'll give you $100 if you act like you set yourself on fire.
And then he actually
does it.
That's even sadder because then
exactly.
It's the human life has been demoted down to, or been degraded down, or degenerated down to being worth $100. If that's true.
If that's true.
Yeah, sorry, bro. No one cares.
Next up, back to the continent of Africa. So Kenya bans the traditional kaunda suit in parliament. So, Kenya's parliament has banned the wearing of a suit called the kaunda, which was named after the late Zambian president Kenneth Kaunda. Within the building, the Speaker of Parliament, Moses, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, said kaunda suits as well as traditional African clothes were not welcome. The Kenyan president, Ruta, often wears them on official occasions and has made the kaunda suit a safari jacket with matching trousers popular with the political class. Ruta has worn the suit, which is worn without a tie, sometimes with a short upturned collar. Earlier this week, the Speaker of the National Assembly of Kenya, that same guy Moses, said that his decision to ban the suit was made due to emerging fashion trends that threaten the established parliamentary dress code.
Colonial puppet.
Yeah, I mean, the sad part is that you are banning your cultural garments because you're trying to make it fit within an institution that's not yours, that you've adopted from someone else.
Yeah, trying to get a seat at the table when the table
Yeah.
isn't meant for you. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So now you're just a politician, bit lapdog.
Get that. He should set himself on fire.
I mean,
He should set his outfit on fire.
Yeah. Set himself on fire. No, I just don't like people like that. Like, come on, bro. Like, really?
I mean, I agree. It
It's
just
just,
Yeah, it's not even like it's like flamboyant. It's
Right.
just like a very, almost like military kind of suit, like almost dress suit, but like military-ish. I don't know. It's weird.
like a tunic.
it's basically like it just. Zawaz is here. Zawaz, did you hear about this guy that set himself on fire in Atlanta? Yeah, in front of the Israeli embassy. Yeah. You weren't there to act as a medical professional?
The look on his face says, "I wish I was there to save him."
Clearly you did not hear that because you weren't there to administer medical help.
The bat signal didn't go up. All right, next up on Rapid Fire, this is our last topic for the night. Elon Musk tells advertisers to go love themselves. So Elon Musk on Wednesday told advertisers who've abandoned X over his anti-Semitic and conspiratorial posts to go fuck yourself, throwing a normally calm media summit off the rails during its closing session. While appearing at the New York Times annual Deal Book Summit, Musk accused major companies, like we said earlier, Disney, the Washington Post, Comcast, all of wanting to blackmail me with advertising, denouncing them for abandoning his platform and speculating that he will fail for that decision. Speculating that they will fail for their decision to take away their advertising.
So at what point do people fail to understand that these huge corporations and companies function like the mafia? Like it's warfare, but it's warfare with the dollar. And the way that they fight you is they force you to abide by their rules and get down or lay down by doing what they say. Otherwise they pull their, proverbial power from you. So yeah, I mean, I feel for Elon, but I would say the stance you're taking is the right one, because for everyone that isn't willing to put $1 into these woke agendas and into these things, then there's going to be somebody there that's willing to. So, you can't help but respect him for saying, go fuck yourself, to those people that are trying to blackmail him. So, hey, welcome to the game. And I think it's refreshing to hear someone like him say it in the position he's in, because I think it's truly showing the way that these powers that be play the game and how they function and how they move. And then people are sitting here and they'll be like, Disney doesn't have an agenda. NBC Universal doesn't have an agenda. Comcast doesn't have an agenda. Walmart doesn't have an agenda. Oh, yeah, this company doesn't have an agenda. IBM doesn't have an agenda. And it's like, yeah, if I was IBM, yeah, I'd be pulling funding from supporting Elon's ventures, because Elon's even in your own tech space. And he's not trying to bow down to you. So whatever technological stuff he's doing in Silicon Valley, yeah, he's a direct competitor to probably whatever nefarious shit you guys do behind the scenes that you don't want maybe getting out. You probably have already perfected Neuralink, or that notion of Neuralink, whatever he's trying to do. Or who knows what IBM. These like tech companies that have all this money, like Disney is sitting on so much money. IBM is sitting on so much money. Comcast is sitting on so much money. Walmart is sitting on so much money. So what is it really? Because history has shown to prove that these companies and these so-called organizations don't actually care about causes. They don't care. But for some reason now you care about this cause? Is it because you truly care about the cause and you truly feel like he's supporting something anti-Semitic? Or is it that there's something else that's now giving you the ability to be able to attack him? If you don't understand the way the game is played where don't make it seem personal. And that's the way the game is played. And that's what they're doing. They're making it seem like it's not personal. That it's an ideological mismatch. It's a morality, it's a moral mismatch in terms of like your morals don't align with my morals. Your ideologies don't align with my ideologies. And that's why we're not going to be able to do business. But anyone that truly understands the game is business is rarely ever just business. A lot of times business is often very personal. It's very vindictive. It's very competitive. It's very much enemy-based, enemy-driven, competition-driven. It's very much driven in that way because you can't escape human nature. So then the question to me, or the question I would pose, is if you buy it, there's some land I want to sell you in Florida. Because to me, it shows that your brain is not working and that you're still not able to pick up on the great game and all the world being a stage playing out in front of you and the way that these companies really fight and go to war. But the difference is you're dealing with somebody that's not willing to keep it behind closed doors. So now Elon is saying, go fuck yourselves on a live TV interview and making it abundantly clear, like, you're not going to blackmail me. I don't care. If something is right, I'm going to support it for being right. I'm not interested in being looked at as being good or doing what you guys consider to be good. I'm not playing that game. So you can't help but respect Elon for taking that position. As someone that finds myself in similar situations at times, maybe not on the same kind of stage, maybe not in the same levels of stakes, but I appreciate and find it very refreshing for him to do that. Because there's a lot of people out there that are frankly just pitiful and that play the game in a very in a way that you're just kind of like, I feel sorry for your descendants because of how pitiful and pathetic you are. So, hey, shout out to Elon. Keep playing the game and keep winning. And I hope this is not the downfall of whatever your endeavors are. It's been another episode of the Gated Gates podcast. We appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we hope you guys continue to tune in. There's so many ways you can get involved. There's so many things you can do. So many resources available to you guys through our organizations. We hope you guys check them out, and we'll see you guys next week. Idiot-oo.
Idiot-oo.